Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CWP Reborn review, brought to you by the Wrestle Plug and, of course, in conjunction with the incredible charity wrestling promotion. If you remember last time round, I'm Aeron, the most unprofessional wrestler there could ever possibly be, and I was also the videographer for this show, so I had a front row seat to all the action, but I wasn't alone. The other man, of course, to my left, if you're watching this via YouTube, he had a front row seat as well. You need a little bit of magic to make a wrestling show work. And what better slice of magic than Magic Marin Rowe? Welcome back to the podcast and welcome to the review, sir.
Thank you. It's great to be back. I mean, we had a really lovely reaction from everyone who watched the pre-show. So, yeah, this is a bit of a debrief, a bit of a chew the fat, talking about all the action that went down at the weekend.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's going to be available. We'll leave it up there. It's on the CWP YouTube channel, which we highly suggest you subscribe to. And if you're watching right now, it's very easy for you to just click like, click subscribe, even leave a comment and let us know what you thought about the show. And we'll be happy to relay that information on later shows, because I can assure you there will be a lot more. Yeah, an amazing show, CWP Reborn for the Novotel Hotel in Southampton, of course, last Sunday, just gone. Now, by the time you're watching this, ladies and gentlemen, all the matches will be available via the YouTube. So obviously check them out in full as well and edited. So give them a look, enjoy them. And if you're thinking, I haven't seen the show yet, you can watch the preview first, then watch all the matches, and then come to this video. So before we get into any spoilers or whatever, this is your last chance to jump off and check everything out before you hear us discuss the show itself. Now, of course, the show opened with somewhat of a bang, the No Limits title. Let's be real here. This is, in some ways, the belt. You know how people speak about the X Division being the proper belt of Impact? You know, you have the Impact World Championship, but the heart and soul of the company really lies around that. I feel like the No Limits title is that as well. 1,076 days, I believe, coming into CWP Reborn. Eddie Kenway was, you know, the longest reigning champion pretty much in British wrestling history, I believe I heard you announce. And I believe that is very factual. I'm struggling to think of anyone who's held a belt that long. And COVID notwithstanding, he's put the belt on the line many a day. And he put the belt on the line here in a fatal four-way against Bobby Vargas, Rudy Root, the Outcast Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, no less. So that's a big deal in its own right. And of course, Roderick the Rambunctious, one half of the CWP Tag Team Champions. The other half we'll talk about in a moment. What did you think from your viewpoint and being able to see it as close as I did?
Well, firstly, I was hugely impressed by the crowd because it's our first show in a long time. We're back at the Novotel for the first time in 3 or so years. And there was a lot of people there. And people came from far and wide to be with us as well. We had some people from the Quality Wrestling Academy. I know we had people come from up and down the country to see the show. And hopefully we impressed a lot of people, which was great. And I know you're not a big fan of Roderick the Rambunctious, but when that pirate music hit and he came through, he got a huge reaction. He is very much a hometown hero in CWP.
Yeah, I'm nothing if I'm not honest. I may not personally get on well with Roderick or his tag partner, but one thing I will give him credit for is he commands an audience. He's definitely a showman, and that was the energy I think he was going to... I'll be real. The other guys, particularly obviously Vargas and Kenway, the meaty hosses, you know, obviously I love myself meaty hoss. And of course I'm going to root for Kenway because he's a personal friend. I'm personal friends with the Knobs. You know, I'm personal friends with Eddie Kenway. We have a lot in common. You know, we've come from a similar background with Destroyers, but I really respected the effort that Roderick the Rambunctious put in because he was clearly at a disadvantage. He was clearly the smallest. Rudy Root, he kind of belies his image. You see him, you think he might be a little bit more lean, a little bit slight. He's a very tall individual. He's got a lot of height. He's also incredibly athletic for his size, and he's used to working a very physical style because Outcast really does bring a lot of that physicality. But let's be honest, when it's all said and done, there's only one man you could really see coming out of this. We sort of said, do the other 3 men have the potential to derail him? Do you know what I think the biggest mistake was here? Because, spoiler alert, Eddie Kenway retains, as you would expect, really, and the reign goes on. The biggest mistake, I think, was that they were too busy trying to deal with the idiocy of Rudy Root. You might have noticed there was the little Shield kind of style reunion. I think there was a little bit too much nonsense on their behalf, and that allowed Eddie Kenway who played along for a moment. Let's be fair, he's normally very serious, but we've seen even with the takeover in the past, he can kind of bust his chops a little bit. He can be a little bit more cheeky. He does have that cheeky side about him, but he lied in wait and he waited for the other guys, and then he picked them apart, really, and he made very good use of that steel chair. And let's not forget, that steel chair was brought to the ring by Roderick the Rambunctious. That in itself might have been the critical mistake in this match.
I think when it's the first match on a show, you're kind of laying out the playing field for the rest of the night. And, Charity Wrestling Promotions has had a long-running history with Outcast over on the Isle of Wight. And to have their champion come out in the first match, there's always going to be a rivalry. And I think to some extent that whole sort of triple team affair there was basically them stating, CWP are back in business, OPW, get in your corner, stay where you need to be. But Rudy Root is a guy that comes out and he looks the business. He's very, very well presented. He's absolutely shredded as well. I mean, as you say, in a match with some meaty hosses, this is a guy with, 5% body fat or something? He looks fantastic. He comes out in the shiny Ray-Bans and all of that. But I think we did discuss this in the pre-show. You may be the host of the chop party, but you can't chop down a mountain. And Eddie Kenway retained. Now he's on his way to the next 1,000 days as champion. So,
yeah. Just as a quick aside, do you think there's anyone in this company capable of dethroning Eddie Kenway?
I mean, it was a 3-on-1 affair. Yeah, okay, in theory, it's every man for himself. But, you still want to prove yourself as the champion by pinning the champion. So it's going to take someone big. It's going to take someone powerful. I've been watching the British scene as it's been coming through, and there are some hot prospects on the horizon. It's whether they can, really kind of impress in charity wrestling enough to earn that opportunity at Eddie Kenway. I don't think it's going to be a new person coming in fresh off the streets. It's going to be someone who has earned their way to the top. Maybe, prove themselves in a match against someone else who is of the same sort of size. If someone can beat Bobby Vegas, they may have a better chance at beating Eddie Kenway. I mean, we'll discuss Bobby Vegas more later on, but I thought he looked $1 million when he came through the curtain. He was fired up. And, and he was getting a lot of love from that crowd as well. This is a guy who's been a hero. He's been a villain. He's been a real mix over his time working in CWP. But when he came out there, the people loved it. And to be honest, if anyone was going to beat Eddie Kenway, it was going to be Bobby Vegas. But, as it happened, that pedigree on a steel chair, no one kicks out of a pedigree on a steel chair.
Yeah, that was the game changer right there. And if you watch the footage back right at the end of the match, Kenway walks away. He's given it the Polynesian, and he just looked like such a vaunted figure. I genuinely don't believe at this point he can be beaten. And I'll be amazed if I ever see him lose that belt. I could genuinely see him retiring as the No Limits champion. I really could. And at that point, you got to question whether it's worth the belt's validity carrying on, because, many a man have stepped up to the plate and many a man have fallen at his feet. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Speaking of destructive forces, our next match, a triple threat match. We asked the question on the pre-show: could the guile, maybe the wily veteran nature of Ian Logan or Johnny Storm derail the dark entity of Damien, who is obviously someone I enjoy a little bit more than maybe I should? And the answer is no. Well, the answer is yes, but not technically with the individuals that were placed. We had a surprise in this match, didn't we?
This match was a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when we were discussing this going in, we were talking about 3 veterans who are all going to be using their own set of skills. There was another set of skills that we were not prepared for. Because for those of you who haven't seen the match so far, okay, it was the idol Ian Logan against the, what do you call him? A demon, a monster, an absolute colossus, from the gates of hell himself, Damian, and of course the high-flying sensation, the Wonder Kid, Johnny Storm. So, 3 very different styles of characters. no one expected Ian Logan to bail before I'd even introduced Johnny Storm. For a moment there, we thought it was going to be a one-on-one contest. But then a surprise happened. Go on. Tell the tale.
It's Ian Logan is, how do I put this? He's a wild card, and he's got a split personality. He has. Anyone who knows Logan knows that he tends to drift into different regions of his mind, and he's kind of like a maniacal genius. You know, he reminds me very much. I've always likened Ian Logan to kind of like Doctor Strange. There's something there. And even though he's so sophisticated and well-spoken and so cerebral, he has that ability to tap into something carnal, something different. And he went for the full scientist mode, Dr. Logan, something we don't get to see as much. The Ghostbuster, no less, Dr. Logan came out. There's no getting around it. It was colorful and it was unique. And even my miserable soul found it very amusing, very entertaining. And it was just enough to knock Damien off of his perch mentally. Even Damien was like, what's this guy doing? Because in his mind, he saw an idiot, mockery, stupidity. And you know what happened in this match? Damien, you would have noticed, Damien was lured in. And if you watch the match, you can see it. He starts being a little bit silly, a little bit stupid. And Dr. Logan drew from that and was able to, of course, hit, the infamous idol in a tin. He hit him with it and he got a win. Courtesy, obviously, of a distraction with a proton pack, no less.
It was more than just a proton pack. It was ectoplasmic residue. And, we talked about this in the pre-show, that it's a triple threat match. Anything goes. Yeah, you might expect a steel chair. You might expect a kendo stick. You don't expect to be shot in the face with green slime, do you?
No, it's and do you know what? Did you see the reaction from Damien? That really unsettled him. I've never seen him that unsettled by something. Like it's hard to really understand. And the thing is, Johnny Storm, the biggest mistake I think he made in this match was he tried to be the purist. He tried to be the pure wrestler, the entertainer. He came in and ultimately, no disrespect to Johnny Storm, but also I think his size played a factor as well. He had a much harder time chopping down the trees. We mentioned this. I said this on the pre-show. Do not assume, because of Logan's somewhat nice appearance at times, that he isn't a big unit of a man himself. He was eye to eye with Damien, who is a huge entity. Logan is a big man. He has been known as a destroyer in his own right. He used to be a hitman of his own. So he knows how to get the job done. And it's kind of cool that, well, if you're a fan of Ian Logan, or if you're just a fan of something different in wrestling, you paid your money. You got to see a special match between three legends of this business with incredible experience. But you also got to see different sides of their characters. And that's not something you're always afforded at different wrestling promotions and at different fights. So that was kind of cool in itself. When do you think we'll see Damien again? How did you adjust to the sight of Damien? Was it unnerving for you? Especially when you were announcing it?
What if you watch the video? I'm trying to keep my distance from him completely, because he comes out. He looks like some character out of a horror movie with this fright mask, and then of course he takes the mask off, and he's even more frightening underneath. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm quite a large guy, but he's easily several stone heavier than I am, and I've got no wrestling training. There's no way that I'd stand up to him. But what would be really interesting is to see it one-on-one and see Dr. Logan against Damien. Maybe some kind of stipulation. I want to see maybe bucket of slime on a pole match, something like that. But yeah, as you say, Damien got a little bit silly during the match. Maybe Damien, obviously he's an unpredictable character, but Damien in his full serious mode, knowing full well that he's going against Dr. Logan, that could be interesting. That could maybe we'll see that again sometime in the future. Yeah,
I will say one thing though. I did say don't sleep on this match, and you shouldn't have. It was genuinely one of the more entertaining aspects of this show, and everything was very entertaining, it has to be said. Now, closing the first half, this is what a lot of people would have banked their money on, and rightfully so. And my lord, at just £8, to see this is astonishing. Franco Vargas made the trip all the way over the pond, originally, of course, San Juan, Puerto Rico. And, you know, he's flying out, I believe he comes out of Texas now in the United States. And he comes over here and he wrestles the best, the very best. And I tried to warn you, Mr. Rowe. I tried to warn you. I knew what was going to happen here. I knew Joel Redman was going to come down. He was going to, let's not beat around the bush, regardless of my opinions on people in wrestling and outside of wrestling. Joel Redman is truly one of the best wrestlers in the world, ladies and gentlemen. This is a specimen. This is quite literally one of the smoothest and silkiest technicians walking this earth, but a little bit too pure. And Franco Vargas took advantage of this, albeit with an unwarranted assist from an unfortunate referee in Dan Barnsdall, who was involved in collisions and things of that nature. But this match, you know, when people say CWP doesn't have big proper wrestlers, CWP doesn't have big fighters. See, I don't take CWP seriously because they don't have good wrestlers. People paid £8, ladies and gentlemen, to watch arguably two of the best wrestlers in the world. And they went out there and for damn near 20 minutes tore the house down. And the fans were ferociously invested in this. And trust me, you don't have to take my word for it. Go to the YouTube channel. If you didn't get to see it for £8, you can go and watch it now for free. What more could you ask for from a wrestling promotion? What did you think of this very special clash there, especially as you had a small role to play yourself?
Well, I can honestly say that what you've got in Franco Vargas and Joel Redman are arguably two of the best unsigned wrestlers in the world right now. You've got one of the best pure British wrestling athletes, and he is an athlete. Joel Redman looks like he has been carved out of granite.
It's like an Olympian. And
then you got Franco Vargas, who has got the talk, but he's also got the size. He's got the swagger. He's kind of like almost like a super heavyweight Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's got that same charisma. And I was talking to him after the show. I mean, after the match that we had at the Novotel in Southampton, his next stop was Mexico. And a couple of weeks later, he's then going over to Japan, wrestling for All Japan. This is a world traveler. He is a seasoned wrestler. And to be able to have any American wrestler on a British card right now, what with all the restrictions, it's a tough ask. So to have, you know, arguably, as I say, one of the best unsigned wrestlers in the world go against a true homegrown great. I introduced Joel Redman as being a national hero. He is, because when you think about recent wrestling history, there are very few, you can probably count them on one hand, British wrestlers who have held a WWE championship. And this is a guy who was the first ever NXT Tag Team Champion. You know, he was a champion before Drew McIntyre was a champion. You know, he was a champion before Finn Balor was a champion. So to have someone like that wrestling for, you know, CWP, which, you know, hasn't got a great reputation. This is the kind of match that will build the reputation of CWP as being the place to see great pure wrestling.
Yeah, it might be a crushing thought for a lot of people whining on their social media, but the reality is that Franco Vargas, whether people, you know, take umbrage with his behavior in the match, which I personally enjoyed very much so, although I always will, you know, leave you out of it, Mr. Rowe. I have a soft place in my very cold heart for you. I thought you were put in a very awkward position. Can I just say, I would appreciate it in future if our fans, although very rowdy and excitable, would refrain from trying to interrupt in the proceedings of a match. It's a very dangerous position, and ultimately, I'm not going to be held responsible if Franco Vargas decides to, shall we say, take matters into his own hands with a member of the audience if they're a little bit frisky. I'm also being made aware that there was some rather unsavory comments made towards Franco Vargas from our audience, and we will make sure that those individuals are dealt with in tow and correctly. But this is a time for celebration, not for, you know, taking to Facebook and having a little cry because not everything is to your liking. For me, this match is every reason why we want to work for companies like CWP. And you know what? You can say what you want about Franco Vargas. Maybe he took the low road because of the circumstances surrounding it. But let's be real, he took a financial hit to work for this show, and he took it because he knows that there's a lot of heart and soul here. And do you know what? At least Franco Varga, unlike up here, decided to turn up for work. I can say that much as well. Sorry, Seth Orioki, but I may as well have a little dig while I'm here, because I know mine's far too classy to do so. So I will. You unprofessional slime bag, not the good slime that Ian Logan tends to use when he turns into a doctor. You were asked to turn up and help raise money for terminally ill children, and your response to that was to tuck your tail in between your legs and go to Leeds. And if anyone chooses Leeds over, helping out terminally ill children, well, I have to question your mental sanity. Frankly, you're an unprofessional, useless waste of air, and trust me, you will not be welcome in any of our venues in the future, dear sir. So enjoy being, a token rent boy on the side of an awful, awful TV show. Getting back to matters, Franco Varga, great win. What a win as well. And do you know what? The only time it's ever happened, and probably will ever happen, Joel Redman versus Franco Varga is available on our YouTube channel. You owe it to yourself to go and check that out. For all the haters, for all the doubters, one time only. And this is a Franco Varga, I might point out, that the night before went to war with Doug Williams, the Destroyer. That is astonishing. That's the level of quality, should I say excellence, because, even quality can wane from time to time. I think that's amazing. I think that's really cool. And putting all my personal feelings and whatnot aside, I think that's amazing. And even from behind the camera, which is where I had the unfortunate place to be, I say unfortunate, I enjoy my work. I do. But, I would like to be in there mixing up with the likes of Franco Varga. But even from behind the camera, that is something that I'm going to be able to take to my old age. That is something that I'm always going to remember, that I was afforded the opportunity to be the man who captured that footage, that I have no doubt many, many an individual will watch. It was an incredible experience, and Franco Varga proved me right as well with his somewhat questionable shenanigans. What a first half, sir. Any closing thoughts on?
Well, one of the things I'll say, if you were there, you would have seen it, you would have experienced it. If you haven't, do check it out on YouTube. But there's that whole hipster thing, isn't there, of I liked them before they were cool. I liked them before they were famous. I think give Franco Varga a year, 2 years, he is going to be a huge name in American and indeed world wrestling. The fact that he hasn't yet made an appearance on AEW is a real surprise, because this is a guy who is learning from the best. You only get better at wrestling by wrestling better wrestlers. So for a guy who in the space of a week has wrestled Doug Williams and Joel Redman, he's then off to Mexico and off to Japan. He's only going to get better. He can't get any more charismatic. We know that much.
Well, I mean, my personal opinion is that he'd have a hard time finding better wrestlers to work in AEW. Sure, there's a CM Punk maybe sitting there, but once that's done, what else is there to do? For me, Franco Varga is already such a higher level than a lot of these individuals that we classify as big stars, a Kenny Omega or a Fleeting Foot Young Buck. I think he is far superior to those. I think he brings so much more. I think he has everything. And what separates him from a lot of these stooges is his ability to break the rules and make it work for him. But he did get a little bit of comeuppance, so we will discuss that. Now, coming out of the break, the second half, things got real feisty real quickly. So, because the first half, it's hard to say after listening to that was almost like the purest portion of the show. The second half got real rowdy. If there was ever a chance, it's family friendly, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, which is why I'm not swearing. But CWP has always kind of appealed to everybody. And we did say this was a real crazy mixed bag of a show. And then things just went up a notch. The violence, the portion, of course, everyone's waiting for me to have my opinion. And trust me, I will. But I also have some surprising takes as well. Outcast Pro Wrestling's de facto leader, owner, former multiple-time champion. I believe he may even be one half of their tag team champions at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong. I apologize if I am. I know he has held that belt many a time as well. Jackson Aeron had no problem upsetting our audience, did he? And you know what? A little part of me had to respect that, because there was zero zero fecal matter given in this context as he took on the heart and soul. And like you say, rightfully so, whether I like him or not, the founding father of CWP, Robbie Nitro. And what did I say to you on the pre-show? If we get a Robbie Nitro from 3 or 4 years ago who comes out swinging with a serious mindset, he will do serious damage and he will have an opportunity to regain some of the glory of his yesteryear and his company's honor as well. And that's exactly what we got. We got an incredibly ferocious, incredibly game Robbie Nitro. And I think it's fair to say that when you remove a lot of the silliness, the stupidness, the shenanigans, the idiotic cosplays, all of a sudden we get to see what is actually lurking beneath the skin of Robbie Nitro. It was sometimes unnerving.
Now, when we recorded our pre-show about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago now, I got a message through from Robbie Nitro saying he watched the pre-show, he absolutely loved it, but my lord, you, sir, did not pull your punches. And I said, hey, maybe this is the motivation you need, Robbie. Beast mode engaged. And he came out and he had the eye of the tiger. He was in absolute full business mode. I mean, yeah, he came out, but it wasn't like the slap the hands of every kid in the audience. It was, I've come out for a fight. And he was prepared. He knew what he was going to do. We discussed this in the pre-show. We discussed that you've got to ground the high flyer. And Jackson Arrow is a fantastic high flyer. What did Robbie do? He went straight for the knee. He was brutal out there, far more brutal than I think I've seen in any of his, Pirate Nation type matches with Roderick the Rambunctious. He was prepared. He had a table set up backstage ready to go. He knew that it was going to take some serious hardware to take down the high flyer.
Crushing performance from Robbie Nitro. He gets that from me. He does. He gets that from me. Jackson Arrow brought an astonishing amount of mental aptitude to this. He was, it was the undoing of him, actually. I somewhat was enjoying it, but it was his undoing. And as was his frame. And I said this, and you said this, if we can, if you can get him, if you can capture him, he could be in trouble. And that's what happened. You're right. This is, where is this Robbie Nitro all the time? Why has it taken 3 years to see this? Before that, we've got Mr. Potato Head running around with a silly little pirate friend, being drunk in front of children. That's really classy, mate. You want to talk about me ruffling feathers, but I don't understand why we don't get this all the time. It's great. It is. It's great that he got this win. Okay. And full credit to you, Robbie. You deserve this win because you went through a lot, because I was right there watching it. By the way, Cliff Foster. Wow. That's something else. I'd love to see him fight you personally. I reckon you could whip that behind, sir. But
I gotta say, when the amazing Cliff was a surprise entrant in the Rumble, he looked petrified.
Did you see Eddie Kenway's face? It was like someone had laid a feast upon him of supple meat. It was just so funny. We'll talk about that. I will say one thing though, for all his shenanigans, he's good at distracting and he's good at mouthing off. And ironically enough, it was a mistake. It was a malfunction at the junction, wasn't it? And he got clattered. And that took him out of the game. And that meant that Robbie Nitro was left alone with Jackson Arrow. Jackson Arrow didn't have his crutch anymore. He didn't have his partner in crime, his nefarious GM, his cut rate penguin. And all of a sudden, Robbie Nitro took full advantage of that. By the way, credit to you boys. I will say one thing nice. It was nice to see men swing weapons properly, not like fairies. Those tray shots were wild. I have no idea why Cliff Foster has such an erotic disposition towards trays. I don't know if you heard him barking off during the show. That's not for me to question. Everybody has their own choices and lifestyle. But it was good to see. And I tell you what, the kids, even the kids in the audience, they seem to have a little bit of bloodlust for this, didn't they? Our fans, they like it a little bit more aggressive, a little rowdy, like it a little extreme. I was quite impressed with the fan base.
Well, I mean, Robbie Nitro, he got busted open, big star. When he got thrown through the fire doors about halfway through the match, he was lacerated. He was wearing a crimson mask, and when you see your own blood, when you touch it and you see the red in your own hands, it clearly it flipped the switch. It drove Robbie Nitro on that little bit further. This is a guy who literally has given his blood, sweat, and tears to charity wrestling promotion. And maybe this is it. Maybe this is the end of the rivalry with Outcast. I think this is a good final chapter. But of course, now that means Robbie Nitro has got to go back to business. That means he's got to defend those tag team championships. I know, again, you're not a fan of Robbie and his team with Roderick the Rambunctious, but they have been successful. They've defeated some top tag teams.
They haven't.
And
they haven't. I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off. You're a very smart man. You should know better than that. I mean, I've seen some of the people now they beat the Silent Bombers. I'll give them credit. That's impressive. Those are two big individuals. But since then, it's been people who aren't tag teams. I would love to see what would happen if he was put in there, if they were both put in there with a legitimate tag team. We've had good tag teams here before. Now, at the start of their run, with the Heavyweight Heartbreakers, for instance, they were a tag team, and that seemed like a good thing. But nobody's going to sit here, not even you, and tell me that they've been impressive. Yeah, it's very impressive beating Palmer the Necessary Evil. Oh, fantastic. You beat a man who looks like a pop vinyl. I'm so impressed by that. And you beat his partner, who quite literally looked like someone had vomited one of Santana's album covers over him. I'm not impressed by that. That's not impressive to me. The difference here is that they've been padding their record by beating weaker opposition. And when they went up against the Cult of the Apocalypse, it was just ugly, is what it was. It wasn't pretty at all. Now, they got a win against two big units, but do you know what? I think this tag team division is weak. I think there isn't really a tag team division in this company. And if you want to make the argument against me, that's absolutely fine. I'll always debate you professionally, Mr. Rowe, because I have a lot of respect for you. However, these tag team titles weren't even defended on this show. He was too busy dealing with Jackson Arrow. If he was that much of a professional, he wouldn't have had to worry about Jackson Arrow in the first place, where, neither of them were defending their tag team titles. What does that say about tag team wrestling as a whole? That disappoints me, because as a young man, I remember watching the Legion of Doom. That was important to me. I remember watching the Hart Foundation. Bret Hart is the greatest wrestler on earth, in my opinion. For me, they're an insult to tag team wrestling. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay. Well, maybe at the next show, maybe in 2022, maybe there'll be new tag team champions, but we shall see. As the next show's a while away yet. We've got all of Christmas to worry about at the time being.
Yes,
I'm sure Roderick will be drinking his body weight in rum between now and then anyway. So,
do you know what? I'll give Roderick one. Do you know what? Maybe people think I'm being too harsh, but it's one thing to have a drink with Dirty Dave. I can enjoy that. I can have a smile at that, but I just think it's getting beyond a joke at this point. But like you say, the show must go on. There is Christmas to think of, and even I will possibly have a tipple at Christmas, but I'll be working most of it because that's the kind of guy I am. I'll work.
You mentioned Dirty Dave.
Yeah, I did. And now I want to gush with joy because you'll know me. I'm very personally invested in this match. I'm very good friends with a lot of people in this match. I've trained with people in this match. A 6-man scramble to determine a multitude of dirty 24/7 champions. Do you realize how difficult it is to follow these cretins around with a camera? Even when you have that, by the way, can I just say, Rob Connor, the MMA specialist an incredibly dangerous individual who lent his time, his decency. Not only did he turn up as a guest of Win Clothing, who represented themselves wonderfully, by the way, shout out to everyone involved with that brand. What a wonderful group of human beings you are. And thank you for lending so much energy to our event. But also, Rob Connor, helping me out with the cameras because, I wasn't afforded the extra help. I wonder why that is, but that's another story too. Do you realize how difficult it is? You could have had 20 roaming cameras and you would have struggled to get all of this. I hope that the edit has done it justice. Martin Rowe, you must have been hoarse after this one.
I announced on my Facebook page a couple of days before the show for people to guess roughly how many times I'd have to say "and new." Now, I've got a little tally chart here, and I'm sure I lost count.
Awesome.
Somewhere in the region of 12 to 13 times did that championship change hands. I'm pretty sure that every person in the match held the championship at least once, and some kid in the audience also held the championship as well. To be honest, it was literally some kid. I was told by Dan Barnstall, the referee, some kid is the champion. So I announced that some kid was the champion. I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit jealous. I kind of wanted to get a sneaky roll up in. I would
believe you didn't. I can't believe you. I was rooting for you. I was sitting there. I was thinking, I can't be unprofessional enough as the cameraman. But Martin Rowe's there. He's right there. And he's got no distractions. There's a microphone, but you imagine if you could have rolled up Dirty Dave Dennis or an Aeron Cruz during this match and announced, your ladies and gentlemen, I am your new Dirty 24/7. Do you know what, Martin? Don't let anyone tell you that you aren't deserving of being a champion.
I appreciate that.
Not.
Thank you.
You should have got involved. For what it's worth, everybody else bloody did. I have never seen anything like this. It is, people are thinking, go on, lay into him, tear into him for destroying the business. How can you? It was too much fun. Can I just say, Ebenezer the Geezer he is nuclear levels of over. Wowzers. The crowd, they lost their mind. His first order of business is to announce to the world that it isn't easy being Geezy, and then Suicida, corkscrew topes over the top rope and wipes out everybody and then knocks himself out in the process. Wow. How do you review a match like this without honestly having a seizure of some kind? What do you take away from this, of the plethora of things we saw?
Firstly, yes, okay, there was wild shenanigans. There was craziness going on. The match went all the way to the bar and back. They spent quite a long time at the bar, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think some of those young men may not have seen enough of a bar before in their lives and were enjoying the prospect.
I've got to admit, the crowd got very excited at the idea of Aeron Cruz getting ID'd. But these are some really talented young wrestlers.
Yeah.
And, whether there's a Dirty 24/7 championship on the line or not, you've got to admit that you're looking at the next generation of great British high-flying wrestlers right there. And Dirty Dave Dennis, who's a bit of a brawler. He's a bit of a sneaky guy. And
somewhat dirty, yes.
How, after all of that shenanigans, after all of those title changes, did he still walk out with his precious? He still walked out once again, Dirty 24/7 champion.
He's something else, isn't he? Do you know what? Every time I had Dirty Dave on my podcast, and at the time he was feeling low about wrestling, and he felt that he had been maligned, that he had been under, and I know all too well how that feels, to be utterly overlooked despite your wisdom and your age and your experience. And, like me, he's a very creative person. And like me, he's somewhat disgraceful. And I respect that. And it's not often you get a chance to say that this match made me a huge fan of knobs. Absolutely, sir. I am big on the knobs, very much so. I cannot get enough of the knobs right now, I tell you. The nasty old boys, of course. That's going to set the censors off, I assure you. Just the quality of this match was absolutely phenomenal. It was, and it was like, don't be fooled by all the veil of idiocy and shenanigans. And there was some extreme athleticism on show. How about Jake Hollister? His first time in the United Kingdom, his first time, I believe, traveling abroad to wrestle. Here's a guy who the night before had wrestled Jody Fleisch. If you want to talk about the skill set, the variety, the kind of broadness of his nature, to be able to go from wrestling someone of his style and his serious, and one of the pillars of British wrestling, Jody Fleisch, to then turn up and wrestle 5 reprobates for a disgusting belt like that. And he came out and he won it, and then he lost it, and then he won it again, and then he lost it again, and he tried to win it back again during the Rumble, and it just got out of hand very, very quickly. I want to make mention of every man in this match, because I feel like otherwise it might go under the radar a little bit. So we've talked about Jake Hollister. I think he was amazing. Dirty Dave Dennis. Like I've said, I think he's truly now, especially with unfortunate incidents, I think it's time to crown him the dirtiest player in the game. I do. I really do. I think he's that special. I think he's phenomenal. I think Ebenezer the Geezer was nuclear in this match, like I've said, special. But then we had, the younger guys. This was your first opportunity to take him in. What did you think of Cameron Anderson?
I thought he was a very, very good wrestler. I mean, I know that this is a guy who's coming up through the same sort of school as Aeron Cruz. He's that generation of young wrestler, and I think that him and Cameron and Aeron Cruz together, either as a team or as opposition, could put on some absolutely fantastic matches. I think they've got a great skill set between them.
Yeah, and I also have it on good authority. They are somewhat good friends. Coming into the match, I think Cameron Anderson did want to play to the crowd a little bit, and the crowd very quickly turned on him, I think, because it seemed quite disingenuous. Like, I don't pretend to like people. Neither should you, Mr. Anderson. You're better than that. But I will say one thing, he got a reaction, and I noticed as the match went on, more and more people were invested in what he was doing, for better or for worse. I thought he really showed up and shined in his moment. And it would be a damn shame if he wasn't a regular in CWP going forward. Aeron Cruz, we've seen him before. You've had the chance to see him at other shows as well. And, I think he genuinely could be the big future of our business, because he has the right attitude. He's a little bit gobby as well. The term scummer was thrown around a few times. Do you know what? Aeron Cruz has always had a little bit of a mean streak in him, but this is the first time where I truly saw him with hatred in his eyes. He actually had a disdain for these people. Like, he didn't, I'll be real with you people. He didn't want to perform for you. He didn't care about you. He wanted to win a belt. That's what he cared about, the glory. And sometimes that can really work in your favor. And for those people, we can't all be purists like Magic Marin Rowe. We can't. I'm sorry. That's just not the way life is. And Magic is the wonderful yin to my yang. And, I really was proud of Aeron, because I know what he's gone through as a young man. And he is my little baby brother. And so is Cameron Anderson. And so they're all my family. And do you know what? We're overlooking him a little bit. Frankie T, the veteran, he comes in. I say veteran. I mean, he's younger than Dirty Dave Dennis, but isn't everybody. And ultimately, he went out there and made a real game of it. And he had a lot more to go after this. So the fact that he was able to put in a shift like that was pretty cool. I had to kind of put my feelings aside a little bit. And, my cold heart had to be kind of removed for a moment. I was really proud of everyone in this match, because I know how hard it was to get them into this match. I had to fight tooth and nail to even get them recognized, quite a few of these guys. Yeah, sure, I'm going to take credit, because I love these men. These are genuinely my best friends in the business. And do you know what? I think that Southampton in general, they were starting to enjoy the knobs just as much as I have. I think by the end of it, there was a lot of people who were very keen on the knobs.
I've got to say, when the knobs were eventually reunited in the Rumble in the main event, the crowd were loving it. The crowd were absolutely loving it. And I'll tell you what, if you are following Dirty Dave on our channel, or indeed on the Wrestle Plug channel, you're missing a lot of the story. You've got to follow Dirty Dave on the social media, because as well as the 12, 13, 14 title changes we had in the match, also at one point, Franco Vargas became the champion, Backstage,
Yeah.
I believe that while Dirty Dave was making his entrance during the Rumble, Cameron Anderson became champion again. So, and then I'm told that on the ferry home to the Isle of Wight, Rudy Root became champion, which means that I'm sure that in total, the championship changed hands nearly 20 times in a 24-hour period.
Yeah, Rudy Two Belts. I believe he still holds it, which it might be in its own right some record for how long. I think it's been, what, 3-4 days since the show when we're recording this, of course. That's astonishing in its own right. I mean, Rudy Root is probably just doing laps at the Isle of Wight right now while Dave is chasing him. I can actually, if you go on, I have it on good authority. If you head to Google Earth and you look at the satellite imagery, you will see a pair of neon shades at night moving at rapid speed, being followed by an incredibly suspiciously large smog of smell. That's just, do you know what? I run out of hyperbole, and you know me, I've got plenty. I'm astonished by how entertaining these people are. You all deserve to be at that bar. You made a right mess of it, might I add. By the way, one of the immortal images, I don't know if you saw it during this melee, this fracas, was 3 or 4 of the men at one point toasting a pint with each other, while poor Cameron Anderson, who I have it on good authority, is slightly older and more reliable with alcohol than Aaron Cruz is, laying on the floor for courtesy of a devastating chop. And then, of course, Jake Hollister, after dousing himself with beer, he's obviously enjoying proper beer, because we know the Americans, they drink watered down stuff, don't they? Let's be real. He was enjoying a good beer, and he might have got too excitable as he left a lasting impression on the back of Aaron Cruz's head. And all of these gentlemen then proceeded to enter our main event. Before we talk about the Royal Rumble, is there anything you'd like to say in closing about the Scramble match?
It's going to be one of those matches that's going to become a cult classic, I think.
Yeah.
I don't envy you to edit this thing together. I'm thinking there may involve like a split screen or a quad screen.
Or camera angles to go for on this.
It's going to be like when you play like 4-player Mario Kart. It's going to be like different matches going on in different corners, I think.
So much win on that reference. So much win, and we like a win. Yes, we do. Winclothing.co.uk. You're welcome. I know, right? Boom. More graphics work than I'm doing for myself. And people say that I don't work hard at what I do. Outrageous. I'll tell you what, if there's one thing that's going to upset some of these salty old veterans online, it'll be that match. I can't wait for them to mash the dislike button on our YouTube channel. Hey, good news for you guys. It still helps with the algorithm. So cry me a river, you salty old goats. The main event, 30 men or women, all-inclusive Royal Rumble. The winner for the shot caller Rumble, of course, will call their shot and take a shot at the champion of their choosing. And you and me were very clear. If you do not challenge the champion, of course, Rishi Ghosh, the CWP heavyweight champion, then frankly, we have to question, the saltiness inside of you. Again, how do you break this one down, Mr. Rowe? I'm
going to start from the top. I've got the list of entrants as they came through. First out, Frankie T.
Oh.
Now Frankie T, to draw number 1 after he'd just been in a 15-minute scramble match.
God,
and Frankie T didn't just wrestle, and get eliminated within the first 10 seconds. He made it all the way through to the entrance of number 30. So this is a guy who wrestled for 45 minutes straight. So, I mean, Frankie T was the Iron Man of charity wrestling promotion, and he must be applauded for that. He wasn't successful on the night, but what an epic performance. 15 minutes of scramble, 30 minutes in a rumble. That's almost unheard of.
Yeah, let's not forget as well that number 2 was Damien, who was in a bad mood because he'd been covered in ectoplasm, and I can assure you it was not an issue with the knobs that brought that about. My lord, to come out, it was shattered. You could see it because, in a match you can pace yourself, but in a scramble match for a dirty 24/7 title, there is no pacing yourself. There is no taking a break, taking a rest. You've got to go. You've got to keep moving because you may be, and as Dave proved, he was very clever. He waited and he bided his time. He was the one man who had the clock in mind. So Frankie comes right back out after, let's be honest, tiny intermission. He would have had a chance to maybe drink a bottle of water, reset himself, minimally, and then he's out there again. And I know for a fact all the guys drew their numbers over the course of the show, over the course of the day even. And I mean, I cannot imagine. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when Frankie drew number one. But do you know what I know? I know something about Frankie, and it's why we get on well. He represents himself so well in professional wrestling. This is another man, right, that people talk a lot of stick about. This is another man that people talk nonsense about. I have never met a more honest and pure person in this business than Frankie T. I've never met a person who works harder, who builds everybody up, who doesn't put himself. By the way, when Frankie T runs IWE, he's not putting himself in title matches on a regular occurrence. He earns his right to be called one half of a tag team champion. Isn't that funny? I really respect what Frankie T does, and he knows that. I've said that to him, but I think it's worth knowing that. And by the way, if you got a problem with Frankie T and you work for another promotion and, you want to sort of sit in the locker room with your little boys and you want to have a little cry while you're, talking about which underwear you're going to buy, you got a problem with me, because Frankie T is exactly what this profession needs. Honestly. Oh, and by the way, some kids, turns out it was his kid who captured the 24/7 championship. Frankie T's son, a one-time dirty 12. You know what? How sad that is, mate. I'm sitting there, I'm 36, I'm thinking, I'm working on, I'm finally getting to where I want to be in this business. This kid is 9-10 years old and he's already a champion. He's won more title belts than I have. That's I don't know why I don't just give it up, give up the chase now. Just sod it, we're done here. The Rumble continues though, and it just went on and on. Now you've got the list, mate. I'll let you take the lead.
Right. Okay. Entrant number 3, Dr. Logan. Now, interestingly,
the gods have aligned. I bet Damien's coming out at number 2 thinking, get rid of this stupid doctor. And then he hears that music, and I saw a look on his face. He was not impressed.
And then it was a real mixture of interesting characters. We had some characters who hadn't been seen in charity wrestling for a while. Buff Daddy, Johnny Rocket, great to see him back. This was a guy who's a former middleweight champion for CWP, looking in fantastic shape. I mean, this was a guy who was a professional bodybuilder for a long time. So he's a small guy, but he's solid and he's fantastic. Then a few characters that hadn't seen before: Roger Sears, Brandon Lee, Scott Jones, young guys with obviously a lot of potential, which is fantastic. You can't have a Royal Rumble without surprise entrants. We had Spider-Man. We had a very tall masked stranger by the name of Payne. Not a clue who he was. Never seen him before. No
idea, but I'll tell you what, sizable. Very sizable. Yeah, yes. Big lad.
Yeah. Talking to big lads, Eddie Kenway was in there, obviously making himself very, very busy in the Royal Rumble, your boy. And someone who actually had a bit of a head-to-head clash with the notorious Angel Amber Joe, who was making her debut for charity wrestling promotion. She came in there looking like China, absolutely stacked, throwing her weight around in the match. And yeah, she's got something of a devastating headbutt. We've learned. So
she's meeting of the minds, no question. And can I just say, I believe it was an individual on that list, the Virus Kane, who came out very soon after this. You might have noticed something that I very much enjoyed was he knocked Notorious Angel almost out cold with a super kick and then proceeded to treat her as the floor is lava, which very much tickled me. So thank you very much for that, sir. That alone was worth sending a boatload of the Outcast boys over. I very much found that amusing.
I didn't realize just how many members of the Outcast locker room were going to be a part of this Rumble, because as well as Kane, we also of course had the absolutely enormous Max Carnage as well, who we discussed Max Carnage before. He's like you, just taller and wider. He's absolutely, he must be pushing 400 pounds, sure.
He's a legitimate Leviathan, and people might sort of say, "What's the big deal?" We see them on WWE TV and stuff like that. Not in Britain, you don't. I mean, there's Big T Justice, who works up in the north. He's the only other one I think who could possibly match him for size. I think Big T's are legit at 7 foot, which is terrifying in its own right. But the guys of that size, like I said to you, Meaty Hosses, it's not a dead art form, but it is slowly withering in favor of this high-octane, high-flying style. And there's nothing wrong with having everything. But then Max Carnage comes out, and this Rumble, for me, proves something. You know, we see it a lot. People always kind of turn their nose up and say, well, you know, we've proven now that big guys don't always succeed. Well, I tell you what, the CWP Royal Rumble, that was a little bit different. Size played a real factor here, not just with the knobs.
Well, someone who got a very good draw coming in the final third of the match was our boy Bobby Vegas. And after not being successful in the Fatal 4-Way, he came in and he was a house of fire. And I got to say that final third of the match was where the heavy hitters were, because you had Bobby Vegas, but you also had Franco Vargas getting in there. Joel Redman was finally able to get some revenge on his American adversary. And finally, number 30, Ian Logan, again, back in the Royal Rumble. All of the big guys were at that back end of the Royal Rumble. And
it's all of them. Massive, man. Jealous I couldn't mix it up with you boys.
Yeah. And then we got down to the final two. It was literally the irresistible force and the immovable object. You had Bobby Vegas against Max Carnage. Bobby Vegas is a big guy. He's probably 18, 19 stone maybe. But then you got Max Carnage, who, what do you think? 25, 27 maybe?
It's a planet versus a neutron star.
He has his own gravitational field. Definitely.
How does that ring? Can we just give some credit to the ring crew and the people who put that ring up and the people who brought it all the way from the wonderful, I have it on good authority, it was from Essex, all the way from Essex, and it's a very high quality ring, and I highly suggest you seek out the individuals involved who own that ring, because to be honest, that needed reinforcing. You know, it might have needed to be on a lower setting, probably was a good thing, because my God, I've never seen such mass in a ring before like that. That's astonishing.
And one of the things you've got to bear in mind is this was a super fast Rumble as well. This was a 60-second Rumble. Every 60 seconds, a new wrestler came in, which meant that ring filled up. Yeah, there was barely room to move. I saw some people try to sort of throw snapmares and suplexes. There isn't room for that in a Rumble. There's too many moving parts, far too many moving parts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want to talk about the winner. I did want to kind of mention the fact that right in the middle, like I said, that the ring could barely contain that mass. The ring could barely contain 3 knobs at a time, and you can make what you want of that statement.
That'll be the nasty old boy.
Nasty, yes. Before I get clobbered by the censors anymore, I can just hear the owners, the shareholders of CWP screaming at me from here. The nasty old boys, they came. The knobs came together, and they were somewhat, and to be honest as well, do you know what? I want to give a special shout out to the sensational one himself, Simon Durden. He has worked really hard to get in this position. You know, let's put a few feelings aside. I know some of these guys work really hard, really hard. And sure, they get to be on showcases, and don't get me wrong, that's valuable. That absolutely is valuable. But you know, this is where big boys play. This is where the real heavy hitters are. And he came in, he looked confident. He's got that winning smile, that winning mentality, and he hooked up with his brothers. And he took the opportunity to dump out Aeron Cruz before he could even breathe. And in all those shenanigans, by the way, it is also worth mentioning, like you said, Cameron Anderson. That's a baller move. You got to give him credit. Rolling up Dirty Dave on the ramp. It got in Dirty Dave. Dirty Dave looked like he was about to cry. He gets in the ring, and then Cameron Anderson comes out and suffers the consequences. See, this is where the inexperience played its part, because he then came out with a belt again. What are you doing? You should have left it in the locker room and bolted when you finished. No, you had to be arrogant. You had to show off, by the way, that you were a 4-time Dirty 24/7 champion. Again, man's been on like 2 shows and has 4 title reigns. That's really annoying. But it is what it is. And of course, they both got eliminated in quick succession. Now, I have it on very good authority. Here's a quick spoiler for you that nobody else will know about. I do know that Aeron Cruz and Cameron Anderson have decided to form a tag team known as the Bromance. And I know that alone will tickle and annoy in equal measure. But I feel, like you mentioned earlier, these are 2 guys of such a similar ilk. Both very good looking, both very arrogant, both kind of cocky. They could be our young bucks. They could be that kind of, you know, I'm excited about that. I'm excited because do you know what? All of a sudden, I mentioned how the tag team division has been a joke. Well, now all of a sudden, we have the Bromance, we have the Knobs, we have people who can actually work properly or are proper units, not a mishmash of theatre objects. So that's quite exciting in its own right. But what I meant to say was Cameron Anderson, as he was eliminated, was then immediately pinned by Dirty Dave Dennis, who then left the premises. Well, he left the Royal Rumble. He had a little run-in, like you said, with Franco Vargas, and then he was pinned on a ferry. And honestly, I don't know how he has the energy to keep doing it, but he does. But I suppose if you've lost the belt to the bin, well, you don't have any inhibitions. But yeah, just crazy Carnage. And again, by the way, Ebenezer the Geezer, wow, hotter than a one-way ticket to hell, that boy. He comes out, the crowd lost their bananas for this man, and they should do, because he is on fire. And another little spoiler, because I know it won't be mentioned, and you know, I know it's not fun to talk about other promotions as much, but he also wrestles for Berkshire Championship Wrestling. He wrestled the same day at Berkshire Championship Wrestling and captured the BCW Theatre Championship, which is in some ways, many would almost relate it to the Dirty 24/7 Championship. So what a special day for him. Multiple time reigning Dirty 24/7 champion and still the reigning BCW Theatre champion. Ebenezer, I love you, man. Congratulations. You have earned and deserve every bit of your success, as do all the Knobs. How can you not be a fan of 3 Knobs in the same ring? It's astonishing. And then we get to the serious business end, of course. I feel like I've taken up far too much time. I apologize, Mr. Rowe. But I'm excited. I'm excited because we have a new #1 contender for the CWP Heavyweight Championship. It was the immovable object itself, you know, the immovable force versus the object, you know, the analogy.
So it ended up with Bobby Vegas in the ring, one-on-one with Max Carnage. And you can see that Bobby Vegas wanted this to be his moment. He wanted this to be his crowning moment. He wanted to do the big body slam and get that kind of enormous beast man over the top rope. Could not lift him. I mean, as I say, this is a guy who is arguably one of the biggest wrestlers in the UK. And you know, to try to physically body slam a guy over the top rope, it's not going to work. But Bobby regrouped, re-strategized, and finally got that big man eliminated. And we have a new #1 contender, big money Bobby Vegas. And I could not be more happy. I said this in the pre-show. This is a guy who took lockdown as an opportunity. He took it as an opportunity to get his cardio up, get his weight down, get himself in the very best shape of his life. He came out looking like $1,000,000. He stood there at the end with tears in his eyes. I have never heard him cut a more passionate promo than he did at the end of that show. He is determined to be the next charity wrestling promotion heavyweight champion and defeat the Prince of Mumbai, Rishi Ghosh.
Yeah, some people might think I have an issue with that. I don't. Do you know what? Full disclosure, Bobby Vegas is exactly why we do this. Bobby Vegas is exactly why I love being part of wrestling. Bobby Vegas is exactly why I work as hard as I do, and I put the hours in and the graft, and I go to places that nobody's ever heard of, and I apply my talents and I apply everything I can, because one day you might be like Bobby Vegas. He is as professional a wrestler as it comes. He is a absolute tour de force in terms of power, of presentation. And do you know what? Like you said, we've seen different sides of Bobby Vegas. And don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed the darker side of Bobby Vegas, and he can be real nasty, but he seems to have turned the leaf. Obviously, lockdown taught us a lot about ourselves as people and how to handle situations. Bobby Vegas is like me. I'm an independent artist. It is difficult. You're an independent artist. It's difficult for us in a difficult time for so many to make ends meet, to wonder, oh, am I going to be able to pay for the electric bill this month? Am I going to be able to put food on the table for my kids, for my family? Bobby Vegas has to go through that as well. And he went through 29 other men, including the biggest man in all of South Coast wrestling, if not one or two of the biggest men in this entire country in professional wrestling, a legitimate giant haystacks for the modern era in Max Carnage. And like you say, to be deadlift him, and you saw his knee go, and you just thought, oh my God, that's it. Like Max Carnage will pick you apart. And he still was able to regroup. This is the cerebral mindset of Bobby Vegas. He learned a lot of things when he turned, because he was able to then readjust and use the momentum of Max Carnage to toss him over. And you could see all of the energy that was left leave his body, but he still had just that little bit left to make his, well, to call his shot and to stake his claim at the CWP Heavyweight Championship. He will hopefully challenge Rishi Ghosh, the Prince of Mumbai. No sign of the champion. No sign of the champion at this show. That's not a quality performance for me. I personally, I'm a little bit disappointed because I like Rishi Ghosh. I like his style. I like his cerebral nature. Maybe he's a little bit scared. Maybe he knew with the quality of talent that we had at our disposal that we could put up somebody who could truly dethrone him. He's gotten away with one for a while now. Is he going to get away with it with Bobby Vegas? I'm not so sure. Bobby Vegas is on a tear. And by the way, Bobby Vegas, no rest for the wicked, baby. This weekend, you'll be listening to it. If you do have the opportunity, you might just be able to get down to it in time. He's wrestling Doug Williams for SWF and Compal, this weekend. That alone is going to be big money indeed. And like he said, big money isn't about the money. It isn't about the number in your bank account. It's about the number in your heart. It's about that. It's all about the passion and the ferocity and the power of your soul. And none deserve it more than big money Bobby Vegas. Congratulations, Bobby. I have a not even begrudging respect for you. I have a lot of respect for you. You are exactly how everybody should carry themselves in this business.
Well, that match is it's penciled in. The contracts will get signed very soon. And as soon as we know the date for the next CWP show, we will be announcing it on the Facebook page and on Instagram and all across social media. So, of course, do follow us. Make sure you, and of course, follow this YouTube channel as well for all of the great edits of the matches by this absolute beast of a man, this bearded behemoth himself, Aeron Nix. You do a great job. You do a fantastic job. So you make me look good as well.
Oh, I mean, it's not hard to turn magic into gold, is it really? That's what you do, sir. I think, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, follow Magic Marin Rowe on his personal social media. And of course, if you get the opportunity, I know some of you did, it's very, very, very important that you hit him up. If you want your kids to look their very best, you want them to look like the next Rey Mysterio or inspire them to become a luchador in their own right, then you need to hit up Magic Marin Rowe, because let's be honest, there's only one person I'm going to, regardless of how many stalls sell masks at a show, and that is Magic Marin Rowe. And believe me, I bought one myself. So exactly. The real money and the real value comes from Magic Marin Rowe. That's not against you, Bobby Vegas, so don't come after us for that. That's you might have a go for that for gimmick infringement, which is fair enough.
It's all right. I'm not going to be selling any baseball caps. That's fine. That's no, purely Bobby's thing.
Man, I wish he told me he was selling those, because I love hats, and my lord, his hats are gorgeous. Both of you guys killing it in the merch. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, we did announce that the show would be on the February 20th edition at the Novotel. Unfortunately, I have been told by management that that's most likely not going to go ahead. I didn't really want to break this news on the podcast, but I felt that it was necessary because ultimately plans do change. Card is subject to change. I can assure you CWP will have shows in 2022. That is a guarantee from us. It's just a case of making sure that we secure the correct venues, because unfortunately not everybody has the help us to help others mentality that CWP does. But I assure you, we aren't going anywhere. We will be running shows. We will be putting on the best available, and you will have an opportunity to buy a mask from the sexiest magician in all the land himself, Mr. Martin Rowe. Look at him. What a specimen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this review. It's been a marathon. It's been a crazy weekend, but it doesn't stop there. We've got more content coming. There's still the matches from Reborn to check out. There's this review. If you haven't seen it already, why not check out a preview? Why not relive the whole experience if you had that good a time? I'd like to send a special amount of love and shout out to all the people who helped out with the raffle, individuals like Lila Carl, who made a special appearance and helped us out. That was wonderful to see, a real angel of the wrestling business in her own right. And so many people who donated so much of their time and their effort and their money to help terminally ill children in need and to help so many great local charities. We are incredibly grateful for your support. We are incredibly grateful that we can bring you a seriously high quality, not high quality, high performance show. And we do it regardless of what other people think of us. We really do. And we're proud of that. And we're proud of all of you for watching. We will be bringing new content to the channel. So keep an eye on that. You know me, I'm a workhorse. If I'm not sleeping, then I'm working at this point. It has to be said. I've got a lot of ventures. And if you want to check me out, you can check me out at Aeron Design. Magic Marin Rowe, where can people find you before we sign off?
You can find me on Instagram at magicmartin666. I post a lot of wrestling portraits and action figures. And if you want to follow me on Facebook, it's Magic Marin Rowe, the voice of wrestling. You'll find out about all of the upcoming shows that I'm going to be involved with up and down the country.
Yeah, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, once you've done that, of course, at CWP Charity across all platforms of social media, we've streamlined it also. It's easy for you to find us at CWP Charity. We welcome your footage, your photos. If you've got anything from the show, maybe some selfies of you guys having a good time, it'd be great to share those on our social media. Thank you so much to everyone who came along. I've been Aeron X, he's been Magic Marin Rowe, and we will catch you very soon for more content on the CWP YouTube channel.